Imagine you decide to attend a protest because you believe that there's an injustice that occurred, and you want to exercise your freedom of speech and your right to assembly and the right to protest in the lawful manner. But along comes someone who's in the same vicinity of the protest, but doesn't share the same views as you. In fact, their goal there is to cause, I would say, friction and then harm, if need be, at the event. You see that person is causing a nuisance, and you in turn feel that it's your duty as a citizen to intervene. And you see that person has a military weapon. And instead of you walking away, you realize you have a weapon to defend yourself. And you decide that you have to protect not only those people, but you too. Instead, what occurs is violence erupts. And that's the story of the Kyle Rittenhouse situation. I have been watching and listening to everyone who has commented about this. And I'm going to say what I've been saying all along. Homeboy guilty. Now, I know about the gun. I know that the dude has family in Kenosha, Wisconsin. I know dude is from Antioch, Illinois. I know dude brought the AR-50 style rifle. I know dude claimed to be a medic, claims to want to go to the military, which he can't go. He can't go to the military. He said that he was in Kenosha to protect the car dealership and to provide medical aid. But here's my question. You're a 17-year-old kid. Shouldn't you be studying for the SATs or the ACTs, or preparing for college admissions, or just studying, your calculus exams in high school? Government is what you take in 12th grade, economics, college, writing, trigonometry, if you haven't taken pre-cal, even Spanish, French. You're supposed to concentrate on being a teenager. This situation, this shooting occurred at August the 15th. Don't say my birthday. August 25th of last year. It occurred 12:49 to 11:59 p.m. Central Time. Okay? That's an hour behind where I'm at. That's sleep time. You should not have been out. And anyway, if Kyle Rittenhouse was a medic, I got one question to ask. How come he didn't carry the medical aid equipment around him? Now, what I know about medics don't bring AR-15 style rifles with them. Medics don't walk around without the medical aid on their person. So that right there was a crocker-ish, in my opinion. Second of all, if you come in there to pretty much bring aid, you don't need the AR-15 rifle. Now, bringing a gun is something that people do, but you're a 17-year-old kid. So we got to go back to the age. And this is the problem. First of all, his mother needs to go to jail. She needs to be charged with child endangerment because she allowed her son to go out with a rifle, which put him in a vulnerable position. Because let's say he didn't get a chance to shoot those people. Okay, and I'm gonna touch on the charges. I'm gonna touch on the shooting. But let's say he had the rifle there and they just decided to pop him. They would have wanted to know, well, who's your guardian? Or let's say he didn't come there with a weapon. Let's say he came there to be, to quote unquote help. And they got him. They would have still questioned her. She's wrong. I don't care what anyone says. Now, we're going to get to the incident. Okay? We're going to get to the incident. Or we're going to get to before. Now, the reason why all this was happening was because of the guy that was shot. I believe his name was Jacob Blake. He has my grandfather. He has my uncle's name. Wow, that's interesting. And people were protesting the unjust shooting of Jacob Blake. Now, you had National Guards that were already stationed to monitor the city. And you had a crew that was called the Boogaloo Boys. Now, this is the thing we got to talk about too. We got to talk about how a lot of these militia groups are within they're not within the military per se, but they're like a bootleg military group, okay? And the Boogaloo Boys, they're like this extreme far right anti-government movement. And their whole goal is to basically start a second American Civil War and a second American Revolution. And they call that the Boogaloo. So their goal is to bring forth a war. This is beyond violence. They're bringing war. And quite a few of them are neo-Nazis. And they're pretty much identified as white supremacist groups. Okay? Now, it's been alleged that Kyle Rittenhouse was basically down with a white militia group. That's something that nobody speaks of. Nobody speaks of that. Now, Rosenbaum is the survivor of the shooting. He survived. He's the one with the gun that they pulled out that the judge basically dismissed. Which, I don't know how you can dismiss the possession of a dangerous weapon by somebody who's a minor. I don't get that. But the guy, his last name is Rosenbaum. He basically was protecting black people. So I'm going to explain to you what happened. During that day, before the shooting happened, there were guys who are black that basically said that this young kid was going around pretty much like trying to bully, now I wouldn't say bully him, but really trying to come off aggressive while he was having his AR-15. And they said he was also putting that in their faces. So they were going to approaching law enforcement to pretty much talk about this guy harassing. They didn't know that he was a minor, but they thought that he looked kind of like odd because he looked really young. So when people were catching on to him, he would basically slide and move away. So what occurred is that he then was walking around like, oh, I'm going to, help people and provide medical help. Now, there were medics there. But what he did that was clever. He aligned himself with those medics. That's where the medic story is coming from. What occurred is that he walked up to two of the very black men that he initially was harassing and putting an AR-15 near their persons. So he was pretty much going around saying, oh, are you okay? Oh, do you need help? So the guys had remembered him from hours earlier. And they said, wait a minute. You the guy that pretty much was pointing that AR-15 in our faces. Oh, hell no. So when that happened, they pretty much made a ruckus because they was trying to get him arrested hours earlier. So what occurred is that the guy, Rosenbaum, had sort of commotion because there was talks about this kid with an AR-15 rifle that was at the protest. When that occurred, he started getting nervous and he started basically going into defense mode. Now, I'm going to get into that too. So when that happened, the other two guys, they saw him. And that's when he then pretty much was trying to switch up the story about how those guys were, the two guys were basically, troublesome makers. So then he realized he couldn't do that. So he was trying to basically say that the two white guys were harassing him. Now, Kyle Rittenhouse had the AR-15 rifle. But when he saw that they were basically, when the guy Rosenbaum basically saw, not Rosenbaum, I think it was, no, it wasn't Rosenbaum. It was another guy. Rosenbaum is one of the guys that's deceased. What occurred is that he pulled out the rifle, they say first. Now, he's shooting Anthony Huber. Okay? He also shot Rosenbaum. Okay? Now the other guy, which is Gage Grosskreutz, he's the one that pretty much pulled out the weapon first. Now, I'm not going to dispute that. But here's the thing. If you see somebody trying to shoot someone, you're pulling out that weapon to prevent something from happening. That's not an act of trying to kill someone. Kyle Rittenhouse should not have brought his ass over there. He was a child. There was no need for him to help. Now, if you wanted to help in the daytime as a medic, okay, fine. But here's the question. Where did Kyle Rittenhouse get his medical training from? And they saying that he was cleaning graffiti. Now, I'm going to say that. I'm not going to deny that he was cleaning it. But I believe that was all a setup. I believe Kyle was part of that Boogaloo Boys group. And I believe that they used him to do the dirty work because he was a child. I believe that because when you're a child and when you're white in this country, you get sympathy. So what they did was they threw him out there and had him take the bait to do their dirty work. You see, white supremacists can be really dirty. Just like the whole thing with Ashley Babbitt, how they sent her out there to basically, take the bullet. Women and children, this is what they do. They're really low. We would never do that. In our community, we would never put a woman and a child out there to do that. But they do that. But they knew that he would be also expendable. Now, I believe that for the most part, Kyle is going to get off on some of the charges, but I think that they're going to convict him for one. And they have to. And here's why. It's premeditated. The gun itself, the AR rifle, it doesn't make sense. The AR-15 rifle, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to bring that at a protest and you're not even 18 years old. And where is his daddy? Where is Kyle Rittenhouse's daddy? And just to be clear, I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit all over the place. And I do apologize for that. But if this guy gets off completely, it sets a dangerous precedent in our country's legal future. It basically tampers with the First Amendment. And I believe that Kyle and his little handlers want to start a second civil war. See, a lot of these groups are connected with right-wing evangelical Christian groups. I talked about that in the last commentary. They're connected to a lot of these fringe groups. Certain people in position of power want to pretty much bring back the old days. And they want to do that bad. And this is like a do or die for them. If he gets off, then they got the Second Amendment really sewed up. And I'm pro Second Amendment. I want to make that key. But even now, there's actually, in the Supreme Court, they want to, like in my state, you can't carry guns really freely. It's basically, like, unless you have, like, military license to carry guns, nobody can have a gun in their home. It's illegal. The highest court in the land wants to throw that out. Which, 50%, you could defend yourself. But then you're going to have a lot of these crazy people going to walk around with weapons. And they're going to start being like the Wild Wild West again. And that's what Kyle Rittenhouse represents. And it's like, perfectly use him because he's 17 and had that spirit of youthfulness to bring back that whole era when white people really ruled. They haven't ruled like that since the 1940s. Many people think the 1960s, the 1940s. When it was in the 50s and 60s, they were on edge. That's why it was a whole bunch of chaos. But comfortably ruling like that has been since the 1940s. This before the end of World War II. Kyle is a Kyle. And he's a dangerous kid. But Kyle didn't be dangerous overnight. Somebody trained him. And those same people that trained him was the same people that took him to that bar. What was that kid doing at 17 going out for drink? Now, he just killed people. If a person just shoots off a weapon, they're going to be shook. But it's like he came near to kill. He wasn't sweating when he got that drink, that celebrity. They were celebrating the kill. But see, this is the catch-22. Kyle Rittenhouse didn't kill any black people. And that's the one thing he didn't do. So even though he killed, he didn't get any black people. He killed 2 white people, 2 white males, and shot another one. Now, people are saying, well, it's not racial. It's one-on-one crime. No. Remember, those 3 white men were off code. They were anti-white militia groups, white supremacy, that moment. And that's the biggest threat to white nationalist groups, is white people who are off code. Okay? So, they might not have killed black people. But him killing 2 white men and 3 that were off cold, that's even more symbolic. Okay? Because that's probably what they wanted to see. You can't really get us anymore because it's so much history. And we got laws. And we got statutes. And we don't have the big one yet. But we have like the James Byrd bill, that anti-lynching bill, even though it's aligned with Matthew Shepard. We have that anti-hate bill. But it's only based on one person. But you have that done. It's like Goodman, Schwerner, and Cheney all over again. For those of you who know your history. White people have always stood up against the ills of white nationalism, white supremacy. You've had many of them that do it. They don't highlight it as much, except for during the Civil Rights Movement, but you've always had it decades ago. But the thing is that you have these white people that are nervous now. See, they scared. They wasn't scared like this in the 90s. They wasn't scared like this definitely in the 80s. But they scared now because you have black young people and white people. The first time since the Civil Rights Movement that are marching together side by side to end a system that they, white people, and their children are benefited from. It's tearing down a system of white privilege. And that's what's got them minds fucked up. And they train kids like Kyle Rittenhouse to get white people who are off code and align themselves with black causes. That is why we as black people, we cannot side with Kyle Rittenhouse. We got to be careful with this. And so all of y'all that want caping for him and say he's innocent, no. You need to read history. You need to educate yourself. And more importantly, you need to basically stop believing in the kumbaya, evangelical, Christian, I don't want to say crap, but fairy tale. Because many of y'all that believe Kyle Rittenhouse is innocent, y'all on that evangelical movement. And I'm going to get to that in another video. Now, I was supposed to talk about that earlier, but I fell asleep. I'm just going to keep it a bean. But anyway, I just want to talk about Kyle Rittenhouse. I just want to say that. And more importantly, that judge needs to be basically recused. And the prosecution team, they didn't do a good job with that. They should have basically made sure that the judge was removed because he was impartial. Because that gun should not, that whole thing about the possession of firearm under the age of 18, that definitely was supposed to stay in. But see, that's the thing. They gotta, do what they gotta do. They want to get this a la Second American Revolution popping and Second Civil War popping. That's why, even though I'm conservative, I ain't conservative like them. Most black people are conservative, but we ain't that. And on that note, I'm signing off and I'm going to bed. I've been up all night and I need to go to bed earlier. And it's your girl, Miss Anna Local. I'm signing off. Take care. Thanks for listening to the commentary. Sorry if I'm all over the place, but I've been dealing with PTSD and everything. So I'm trying to come back to myself. Thank you and take care.